1st, 2012. We'll call the meeting to order at 5:30. We do have a quorum of the council present. Councilmember Cantrell will not be here, and Councilman Strother is not yet, but we're expecting him to be here. So we do have a quorum, however.
The Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Board of Directors is now in session at 5:30 p.m. and we do have a quorum.
Okay. Do we have any citizen presentation requests?
I don't want it yelling at you.
Okay. The first item we have then is to consider and take appropriate action regarding joint session minutes for July 19th, 2011.
Madam Mayor, I move the approval of the July 19th, 2011 joint session minutes.
Second.
The motion's been made by Director Sanders, seconded by Director Carr. Is there any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. The second, consider and take appropriate action regarding a joint election agreement between the Town of Trophy Club and Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1. Mr. Sly?
Madam Mayor and Directors, this is we generally enter into a joint agreement for upcoming elections. This is no different. I think the agreement stipulates, and I'll defer to the attorney because she wrote it, but I do think that the agreement stipulates that, you know, we'll share in the costs of the upcoming election equally. I'm pleased to report that Denton County is covering for Tarrant County this year. So, you know, unfortunately, what that means for our Tarrant County voters is that once again they are going to change as to where they're going to vote. But what it does mean is we'll all vote collectively in the same place as a community, as a town. And you know, I wish we could make that happen religiously every time we have an election, but unfortunately we can't do that because it's not our purview to do that. But in this case, Denton County is covering for Tarrant County for the upcoming election. And what the town will be doing is, once again, we'll be sending letters to every single registered voter in Tarrant County to let them know where they can come to vote, so that, you know, hopefully we can mitigate the confusion that they go through on an annual basis. What else needs to be said about the agreement?
That's pretty much it. It's the same agreement that we typically enter into. So.
We'd recommend approval by both boards, or council and board.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the 2012 joint election agreement between the town and the MUD.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion's been made by Councilman Rose, seconded by Director Sanders. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Yeah. Okay. Madam Mayor, before we leave that item, I do want to bring to your attention, and I'm going to let Patricia talk about the detail. We have had recurring discussions with both the Democrat and Republican parties as far as their primary is concerned, and initially told both parties that because we couldn't accommodate one equally and fairly with the other, that therefore we wouldn't have a voting area here in Trophy Club. I'm going to let you take it from there. It's gotten a little bit convoluted since.
I received a phone call yesterday from the general counsel for the Republican Party, and apparently the Republicans and Democrats are all sort of in a quandary because right now they don't even know what their election date's going to be for the primary election day, and they are having issues finding a location to hold these the election day proceedings. So basically they've checked with schools. They were trying to do that, and the schools have issues because they're concerned with safety and the number of people on and off campuses. So they are coming back to the town. They had initially requested, I believe, I don't remember which party came to us first and asked the question, could they use this facility here? And we had done that in the past, and we had used this room and then the Public Services Conference room at the other end of the building. And the other room is very small, and then we had some complaints from people that depending on what door you went in, people knew whether you were a Democrat or a Republican. But the call from General Counsel yesterday was to say, we're not trying to be difficult, but we really, really need help because we can't find a place to have these elections. And they are citing a section of the election code that basically says that these elections should occur in a public building unless the governing body determines that it's impracticable for that to occur. And so they're asking, please help us find some place to go. And apparently somebody along the way had some conversation with the fire chief about perhaps using that building down there. And, I told him, I said, well, the issue was we have a large room and a small room. And he said, again, he called me back today or emailed me back today and said he's talked to the Democratic person who basically said they don't need much room. They'll take wherever they can go, but they just need some extra consideration on can they use the facilities out here for the primary election day election. They have written to the Secretary of State Elections Division, who's basically said, yeah, the election code does say it should be in a public building, and we do defer to governmental entities to determine whether it's practical for them to allow that to occur in their facility. But we strongly encourage those governmental entities to do that because it saves taxpayers money. Because you don't have to pay somebody to go in there and have those elections. So what they've asked us to do is to please reconsider allowing the Democrats and the Republicans to have the election day primary in somewhere in this facility, whether it's one of them here and one of them at the fire station, or one of them here and one of them in the Public Services Conference room. That's what they're asking that we consider. And the decision had already been made that if we couldn't accommodate them both the same, that we weren't going to, but they're telling us they don't care. Right now they're just desperate and have to have a place.
It appears to me that, in the past, we had a primary, and if I remember right, the Democrats had to actually go to another location other than this, which was very confusing. If we utilized the fire station training room, which is smaller than this room, but quite large compared to the public room down there, and use, one or the other here, at least they'll come to this central location, and we can direct them, okay, Democrats go down there, Republicans here. So it seems to me that would be the workable solution.
And I think that we always have to keep in mind that, this may be the Republicans and Democrats, but it's our citizens voting. And I think it makes sense.
So, like I said, they had been told no, and we basically told both of them no so that we didn't treat anybody any differently. So if the council and the MUD board is amenable to them using those facilities, then I can convey that back to them, and they will be very happy.
And again, we don't know the date yet.
We don't know the date. Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's their other part of their problem is how do you reserve a venue when you don't know what the date is.
That's something that when they come up with a date, you're going to have to work out with the chief and maybe Robert and Mike on who's in this room. During the day, I wouldn't see anybody. It's just, the nighttime hours.
Right. Right now, they think it's going to be either May 29th or the first week of June is what they're being told.
Wow.
So.
That's really so we don't have any concern about overlapping with our city election.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Do we need to vote on that, or
no?
just...
They asked, and because the election code says it's up to the governing body, then it was like I needed to ask y'all, and if y'all don't have any objection, then we can work out the details logistically from staff with Mike and Robert.
I have no objection.
No objections.
No, it's fine. Is there any guidelines or rules that they can't be in the same room?
Well,
I asked that before.
that was the initial offer was you can both come here and both be in this room, and basically they're concerned about enough room for election equipment for people to move around because they do have to accommodate people with wheelchairs. And also their concern was that based on past history, they have issues with Democrats putting ballots in Republican boxes and vice versa, even when they are separated far apart. So
I seem to have read or heard.
Just
it didn't
don't
get
know if
along.
we need to do red and blue or whatever. Line down. You said there was an issue about, well, they're going down this way and I know that way, and so I'm saying, well, to me, especially at the primary, even though we're being told that the primary is going to be the election for a lot of our folks, is that you take this room and split it down the middle. I don't know if you required 1 or 2 handicap facilities per each side, plus 3 booths, plus a check-in. You got plenty of room on each side to do it. But
Well, they
they want to split. I mean, it's
They
up
do
to
want to split. Yes, sir, they
them.
do.
I don't care.
Okay.
As long as we get the big, I know where to go.
We won't answer that
I
question.
will not say
We won't
anything.
answer that question.
I mean,
I'll let y'all figure that out.
I think they should be all in one place myself, but it's up to,
Okay.
I don't live in Austin, but I do spend a lot of time down there, unfortunately.
Their preference is not to. The person I was talking to, who's the general counsel, said that he personally had some very bad experiences working elections and people getting mad saying they needed their ballot back out of that box. So they just don't want to take a chance on that happening.
That's fine. I was just.
I guess they're using
if
paper
it could
ballots, is that what you're?
accommodate 'em in,
I don't know.
make it
Not-
work.
Well, they do have to offer paper ballots, so you would have some. But
Oh, okay. All right. So we're good?
yes, thank you.
Okay. Good. Item 3, consider and take appropriate action regarding a joint resolution of gratitude for District Manager Robert Scott.
Madam Chair, could I read the resolution for the minutes? Do you mind?
Not at all.
Or you can? You want to?
It's up to you. I can do it, or you can do it.
Go ahead.
I would defer to that.
As soon as I find it, here we go. Mr. Slide, did you have anything to? Okay. Okay. A joint resolution of the Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 and the Town Council of the Town of Trophy Club, Texas, to recognize Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 District Manager Robert Scott on his retirement. Whereas District Manager Robert Scott has given over 20 years of service to the Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 and the Town of Trophy Club, and during these years he has made a significant difference with his contributions and assistance in numerous positions and functions of this town. And whereas the performance of his duties and his willingness to accept responsibilities and form good working relations with others has established him as a dedicated professional, and whereas District Manager Robert Scott has, for the last 4 years, served as the Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 District Manager, and during his service to the town has worn many hats, and whereas the Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 and the town wish to publicly express their gratitude to Robert Scott for his service. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Trophy Club, Texas, Section 1, that the Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 Board of Directors and the Town Council hereby officially recognize the service of District Manager Robert Scott, and by adoption of this joint resolution hereby publicly express their sincere gratitude and appreciation to District Manager Robert Scott for his dedication and commitment. Section 2, that the Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 Board of Directors and the Town Council recognize that it is only through the efforts and accomplishments of employees like Robert Scott that Trophy Club is truly a great place to call home. Section 3, that on behalf of the Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 Board of Directors and the Town Council and all municipal employees, a heartfelt congratulations is bestowed on District Manager Robert Scott on his retirement from public service, effective March 2nd, 2012. Section 4, that this joint resolution shall become effective from and after its date of passage in accordance with law. Passed and approved by the Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 Board of Directors and the Town Council of the Town of Trophy Club on this 21st day of February 2012. I personally think it's fitting for me to read it since I actually was on the MUD board when we hired Robert.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move the adoption of joint resolution of gratitude for Robert Scott.
Second.
The motion's been made by Councilman Director Sanders, seconded by Director Carr. Is there any discussion?
I have just one. I mean, it's a minor change that I requested above Section 1. It should say that now therefore be it proclaimed by the Town Council of Trophy Club and the Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1.
Yeah, I was thinking that when I
I
read
second
it. It
that
is.
amendment.
It is
It's on the
changed.
original The
Okay.
people, it wasn't
I was
sent.
thinking that as
It's
I
in
read
there
it.
now, but
seemed-
Shannon didn't reinsert it.
Okay, that's good.
Well, do we get to say anything about Mr. Scott?
That's the time for
Well, then,
discussion.
hey, you know what, Robert? I've not known you a long time, but I appreciate what you have done in this town and the respect that you have gained and the difference you've made over the years. Because I know there are a lot of people in Trophy Club love you for it, and I know people are going to miss you. And I know that I'm glad I'm not on the mud to have to replace you. So, and in terms of making that decision, because it's going to be hard to change. And I know that a lot of people have worked with you, including Connie, over the years. So I'm a new resident to Trophy Club, and so I thank you for what you've done.
Bill? I would like to say thank you as well. As I mentioned, I was on the Mud Board at the time. We hired Robert the first time before we even hired him as a manager, and then I was chairman at the time that we brought him in as manager. And I couldn't find anybody that I trusted more, that I believed in more, and I think something that always made me laugh was when people complained about Robert that you would think that every penny he spent was coming out of his own pocket. And I personally think I wish people would complain about me that way. I think that's an honor. I really do. I think that we have always trusted his budgeting incredibly, and his knowledge is just unsurpassed. And I thank you. And I also appreciate, as mayor now, your willingness to work with us.
So I might want to mention that we are having a retirement reception in this building this Friday at 3:30.
Thursday, isn't it?
Thursday. Is it Thursday? I'm sorry.
You scared me when you said
3:30, is that right?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. Okay, well, I don't have any of it right then. Okay.
And I will check my schedule and see if I make it.
So Thursday at 3 o'clock in this building.
Okay. All right. So we
Mayor, if I may, just real quick.
Please.
First, I apologize. Didn't mean to step on any toes. I just thought it was, I certainly understand your reasoning to read the resolution. I was just,
That's
somebody
fine.
offers to go read one of these, I go, have at it. So, and also, but to thank Robert from early on my days and saying, hey, show me around, want to see what's around. He dropped what he was doing and walked me around, and not only up here, but down at the wastewater facility, and gave me a picture of what's going on. And like I said, it's certainly been an honor and a privilege to work with you, and you've certainly been a great asset to the town. So appreciate it.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I don't want to thank Robert. But I do want to thank Marlon. Thank you for being there for Robert. I know it's been a long road for both of you guys, and I know you guys are a team, and you're there always in support of Robert. And this is not the easiest job in the world to do when you're in the public eye like we all are. Thank you for being there for him. Mm-hmm. I'm not thanking you.
I don't know, the way she feels, I'm not the one retiring. She's getting retired because I am retired.
I had a unique experience my wife and I, Irma and I, had a chance to spend a couple of weeks with Marlon and Robert in Israel. We went on a trip together with a bunch of other folks, and I want to tell you that he can go for 10 days without talking about mud. That's good. Good practice.
Not yet. We have the motion and a second, but this is the discussion time.
Gotcha.
And I would point out that anyone who has not worked for 5 different people at the same time has no idea how challenging it is.
Where'd you get 5?
10 for a while.
10, yeah. This is true. 10 people. That's very true.
Well, Robert,
Okay.
on behalf of myself, I really want to thank you for your dedicated service to the town of Trophy Club. Been here longer than me, for sure, but I have known you in so-called 2 lives, but I've never known you to wear a hat. but apparently you've worn different hats. But that's just a little joke. But thank you very much for all that you've done and for your willingness to take this town as your own and protect it and to make things better. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Okay, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the resolution? That is unanimous. Congratulations.
Yeah, man.
Robert, I don't know that you noticed that the resolution said that your retirement was actually 2013. Did you notice that?
I hope you won't miss me too much after I leave on the second.
Okay. Item 4, consider and take appropriate action regarding the relocation of utilities for the proposed roundabout at Trophy Club Drive and Trophy Lake Drive. Mr. Sly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Directors. As I'm sure you're probably well aware, we've opened bids again on the roundabout project, and last night the council awarded CPS Civil the contract to construct the roundabout. And I think the amount that was awarded was $1.8 million and some change, $1,815,090.35. That amount includes the cost to relocate those the municipal utility district water lines to the tune of $187,254. $187,254. I know that there's been some discussion along the way that last year Sly popped off and said that we could pay for that with Denton County money. Sly did pop off and say that. I went back and reviewed the tape again today, and my comments were directed directly at the council, letting our city council know that in fact those monies could be used for publicly owned utility relocation. I don't know that I said that that we would use it for that purpose. Quite frankly, the money that we are getting from Denton County is for the roundabout and other street improvements. I've had ongoing discussions with Robert Scott about the necessity, number one, for relocating those lines, and who should pay for that. And I know that there's been some money appropriated in this year's budget and this year's MUD budget for parts of that project. And quite frankly, we are at the point where we need to make a decision as to whether or not, number one, you want the utility moved, and secondly, how it's going to be paid for.
Robert, would you enlighten us about the amount that's in the current year's fiscal budget?
And the capital expense in the roundabout.
Robert, you might.
And there was some other things in there. Was a total of $87,000, but that was for the roundabout and some valves and what have you. But that line over there is I believe it's an 18-inch, which has been there since the early '80s. It's pretty deep. It's 1.5 inches thick. The chance of it blowing out is slim and none, but you never know once you start moving. And I know they're going to have to move that water line, make it a little deeper because of the storm drain that's got to go through there for elevations. And they will be burying that water line a little deeper right in the middle of the cul-de-sac. And the valves right now, if you leave them like they are, is going to be in the middle of the cul-de-sac. And I guess, is that going to be still dirt in the middle, Mike, or are they taking the fountain out? Or
Yeah, there's no water feature that, if you'll remember a year ago.
What is right in the middle now?
Landscape. It's dirt.
So our valves would be in a grassy or dirt area if it blowed out, but we will have to change the valves out regardless, because there was put in there 81, 82, I forget when it was, and they, in the wintertime, when it gets real cold, they do tend to leak a little bit, so they need to be replaced. But that's what mainly the money was for, to replace the valves in there. And as far as moving the whole thing, like I say, it's deep. Going down Trophy Club Drive in front of the church, that's C900 12-inch. Coming down by Tom Thumb, and then transitions right there at the valves and goes down from 18 to 12-inch. And the coming down by Tom Thumb is AC pipe, asbestos concrete, and it's real thick. And we have a 14-inch AC all the way to elevated tank. Never had a problem with the 14-inch because it's thick, and the one going down there is 18-inch. So, you know, it might last another 50 years. Who knows? You just don't know. It might not last past tomorrow. But it is in a dirt area where we could get to repair it if something happened. But my only concern is where they dig it up and change it and go deeper where the storm drain's going. Then that is going to be deep. Probably another 4 foot, Mike.
Every bit. The wall is 3 feet, so
Yeah, so.
you know you figure a little bit of elevation.
So of the 187,000 in the bid, how much of that was the pumps that we budgeted for?
That don't have nothing to do with pumps.
Oh, it doesn't break it?
This
Okay.
is valves and
Okay.
water lines. And it's just hard to say how long that would last. But, you know,
But how much of the 87 did you think you budgeted for valves then?
it would be about 60 because there's 3 valves over we need to put in. By the time we dug them up, fixed them, and put new valves in. But like I say, that where the valves are is in a grassy area where we could, you know, if something happened to them, we can get to them. Don't have to cut out concrete or nothing else. With a vac truck now, you don't have to get a backhoe in there, so that would be pretty easy. It's the discretion of the board just whether they want to go ahead and protect way down in years to come or leave it like it is.
But the 187 did not include the replacing of those valves?
Yes, they did.
Oh, it did, okay.
Yes. We're just going to have to replace them valves whether we moved it or not.
Oh, okay.
Are you done?
What did the 187 include?
Basically, relocation. If we do nothing, that line is going to bisect where the proposed roundabout will be built. I mean, it'll go directly underneath the roundabout. You know, with drought conditions and the way the earth moves, you guys know better than we that you've had significant breakage this year on some of your mains. You just never know. One of the things, if you don't mind, Madam Mayor, when we approached the board, the MUD board, with our budget overview this fall or this past budget cycle, we told you then that what we had anticipated in terms of road improvements would be the roundabout. When we started working with the budget, we told you that we would be doing. We anticipated getting a segment of Indian Creek taken care of in Pin Oak, I think.
Yeah.
Pin Oak.
Yeah.
And like we always do, like we have done in the past, we work in concert together to replace the water lines as we rip up streets and replace streets. As it stands today, I do think, and I've talked with our street superintendent, I do think that although Indian Creek is failing, I think it can be stretched into the early part of next fiscal year, if that would help. And you could take those dollars that you have budgeted as an example for Indian Creek's water lines and redirect those to the roundabout if that's what you wanted to do. And then we can plug Indian Creek in back next year as an alternative.
I have a question. The valves, Robert, are we relocating them or just replacing them in the center of the
Well, all I
roundabout?
put in there is just to replace them, but where they are now, they're right in the middle of that
Right,
cul-de-sac,
so-
and they want to move them out,
so-
move everything out, yeah,
But they can stay where they're at because they aren't planning any water feature in the middle anymore.
they could.
Okay.
No, but it's,
My-
I mean,
Excuse me?
if you did have a problem with them, I mean, like.
Can
I
you
said,
use your mic, please?
It's not gonna be easy to get down to.
Can you? Sorry.
If, this is just my 2 cents here, and if the valves are at a point that, I don't know if it's packing on them or the processor is just the valves have gotten rusted. I don't know if you've done a full inspection on them or what the piece is, but if they've got to be replaced, you might as well go move them at the same time and get them out. I mean, because you've got a 3-foot wall that's full of dirt. If you got to get down there, yeah, you can. That's a lot of dirt to move with a vac truck. So you're not going to be able to get a hoe up in there and be able to get downtown and be able to do proper trench safety and in that process. Where does the 18-inch line feed from? Does that feed from the main plant coming back, going west?
It's 20 inch all the way down to Meadowbrook, and then it changes from 20 inch to 18 inch along Tom Thumb there. It
Okay.
comes all the way from the water plant. That's the main feed for that part of the plant.
And then it splits there, and then you've got a 12-inch going back north?
You got a 12 inch going on down Trophy Club Drive, and a 12 inch coming down Trophy Lake Drive. And it's a three-way, you might say, and two of them's got valves on them. It's 18 inch and 12 inch going down, or coming down Trophy Lake has a valve on
And
it.
both of
All the 12 inch is C900, so it's been replaced?
Going from Trophy Lake down Trophy Club Drive, out to the north, it's C900.
Okay, so because we approved the alternate, which is replacing that concrete all the way down to Durango, so.
I'm sorry,
I'm not-
but we're over here looking at this.
Okay, wait a second. Could you please move your mic down? And Robert, could you move yours down, please? I'm just getting a thing. They're having trouble picking it up.
Okay, we're over here looking at this, and I can't make hide nor tail out of it, and I'd just like to know where the present one runs and where the proposed ones are running.
Where would
The
you,
one that's hashed out is the present. The one that shows, that says 12 inch and 18 inch, that's where they're moving them to.
Okay, so they're moving them, they're moving them closer to the church, over to the west and
Right here is
south.
existing, the blue is the existing,
Okay.
and if you look over here, 18 inch water line, see where they're coming out with it? They're moving them all the way out here.
Okay.
But it's now here.
Yeah, where the hatched is, yeah.
All of the utilities are basically relocating their assets out of the roundabout in the event that they have to get to it. They don't have to rip up the roundabout to get to it.
we'll have to rip up something to get to it, whether it's where they're
Right,
relocating.
you put it in the right of way as opposed to in the middle of the intersection,
Yeah.
so that you're not conflicted with traffic. You're in a safer area to repair whatever issue you might run into, and you're not impeding traffic at the same time.
Madam Mayor. Point of order, I think we've diverted a little bit. It's a money issue, not where it's located,
Well,
at least
It's a
based on the way
decision.
it's agended.
well, it's a decision whether to spend the money now or later, and it's a location of how much it's going to cost and the convenience of it, if it's within the roundabout or outside. So I think it's related.
And it's understanding what you're spending the money for.
But the main thing is, I mean, you mentioned, Mike, that the money from Denton that we're getting in this, I mean, what you just said now is roundabout. It wasn't designated for the roundabout. It was designated for street improvements and repairs. Is that right?
The council passed a resolution last night.
I know, but from Denton, the original funding or money was designated by Denton, the city or the county of Denton.
No,
It wasn't. What, was it designated
no.
for anything?
When they went out for the bond call,
Right.
I think at the time Mayor Sanders and Mr. Seidel worked up a letter to Denton saying, if you're adding, we are the population center in southern Denton County. We sure would like to have a little bit of the action. And they submitted a project for $2 million to plan for the looped road.
Right.
That was the original project, and that was what was on the books at Denton County. As I've explained in several meetings, that Commissioner Eads certainly indicated that and believes that road will never get built.
Yeah, I fully agree with that, and I'm not.
So
I'm
rather,
disagreeing.
he had overruns. He said, Mike, I'd rather use the money for legitimate projects. And I said, guess what? We've got those too.
Okay.
And we're helping pay for those bonds. Let me give you a list of those projects. And I did.
And you just mentioned, what I'm getting at is you mentioned the roundabout and other street repairs.
That's right.
So out of that 1.8 million, bid that you got, did that include other streets or was it just a roundabout?
Yes.
Okay.
It included Trophy Club Drive from Trophy Lake up to Durango on both sides.
Okay, that's what I was trying
Yes.
to. Okay.
Excuse me, I guess I'm going to have to go review those tapes like you did, but
Mike, it just really seems to me like I remember you saying that, when this thing was going on last year and it kind of blindsided us, we didn't know about it, and we said, well, we'll do something with it, but we don't want to do it with this year's budget because we didn't plan it, but next year's. I'm going to review those tapes. But it seems like that you said to us that there was going to be some of that money that could be spent and that you would see that it got spent on utilities.
And I believe that was because, at that time, that was because you didn't have the opportunity to have it in the budget. It was a matter of, because and I know on the MUD we ran into that a number of times where the city would go and do something and we didn't have it in the budget because we didn't know ahead. Now I'm going to go. And what I think happened at the time that we brought up the roundabout, we were in the middle of the year. The MUD did not have the opportunity to put it in the budget, and we said, okay, we can help with this, but now that our assumption was that now that we were in a new year, that you had the opportunity to put it in the budget.
An assumption comes in here because that wasn't shared with us, that assumption, and I think all of us here were still of the opinion that there was a barrel of cash at Denton County, and you were prepared to divvy some of it up for the utilities on this thing.
There was no assumption. I gave you a complete and thorough.
No, I meant an assumption on the part of the council that we were going to be paying for the whole thing after the first of the year. But Nick, your memory is better than mine, so.
Nick?
I would just like to add a couple of comments. When we were going through our budget process for this current fiscal year is when we specifically wanted that narrowed down so that we could include it in the budget. We didn't include it in the budget. It's right in front of me.
Okay.
I believe it picks me up great. I can hear myself. I believe it. So we didn't include what we thought might be needed in our budget, specifically because my memory of you being in our meeting was that my impression was you were going to do everything possible to try to do that. It did affect other things in the sense that there were maybe less roads to do with the entire $2 million, and we also had Municipal Drive facing us, which I believe your comments at the time were it's going to make it harder for you to participate in Municipal Drive in a shared environment if we were doing that in that scenario. So I'm not so concerned about the past. Our memories maybe differ slightly. So just to get this dealt with appropriately and to move forward, Madam Mayor, I'd like for you to turn the meeting over to President Moss so that I could entertain a motion, so we could entertain a motion.
Okay. Mr. Sanders?
President Moss, I move that we increase our allocation for utility relocation as related to the roundabout from approximately $60,000 that was in our current budget to $93,627. And if I receive a second, I'd like to speak to it.
I'll second that.
I picked the amount because that was half of what was approved. If the $187,254 was in the bid, the $93,627 is half. What it does for us, if I've understood all the comments thus far, the $60,000 for valve is in the $187, and so we've got $60 budgeted. We just don't have all of it, but I surely am willing to increase that and at least get a motion on the floor that we can debate and deal with appropriately. Thank
Nick, when we first started this, we was told it was going to cost, Tom Rutledge, the engineer, said it was going to be $153, and this last bid came in at $187. So the original bid was $153 if you want to do half of it. Just my comment.
Can I make a comment? May 24th, 2011, there was an agenda item. There's agenda number 9-2011-33-M1, discussing this very matter. I actually made a motion. It says, a motion was made by Secretary/Treasurer Carr, seconded by Director Armstrong, to approve payment of not to exceed $75,000 for the purpose of relocation of water lines for the Town of Trophy Club's roundabout to be paid in 2011-2012. The motion carried unanimously. So it was 75.
And that was based on the 153.
Exactly. You're right. So,
Robert, my recollection is you had bid that out on your own, right?
Yeah,
and that's what it came in at, is 75,000.
All the bids we got, I think there was 5, and it's anywhere from 75 to 135, something like that. I don't remember what the actual bid number was, but it started out at 75.
Yeah. That's what I think that you were commenting on, is the MUD actually had a bid that they went on their own to get, and got a $75,000 bid to relocate your asset. Lock, stock, and barrel.
Mike, that first bid that Tom got, was it not 153 though?
No,
Back-
that was the engineer estimate this year.
it's here.
The 153
yeah,
is the
153
engineer-
what I remember
It wasn't a
what
bid.
Tom wrote.
No, if you read the minutes, it says District Manager Scott advised that we have received 3 bids ranging in cost from $72,000 to $85,000. That's in the minutes of May 24th.
So you did have a bid at, I've got part of the minutes, I extracted it, but I didn't pull up the total minutes. So you did have bids at that time to do the
That's what
work
the
that you
minutes
thought
say.
was necessary, because that kind of fell along with what I remembered from that meeting. And as I remember it, that what happened is basically the amount, and I think Councilman Struther was one that come up with 75,000 later on in the meeting. My memory is that amount was to cover the entire project at that time, and that because of the objection of not having time to put it in your budget, the town agreed to carry it till the following fiscal year so that you could put it in your budget and budget for it, and that's where the $75,000 came from. And that's how it was. The understanding at that time was that you were going to cover your costs as your franchise, and the town was going to lend you money and you were going to reimburse us the following year.
Reimburse us or you?
Us, the town.
The
Reimburse the
town.
town.
I remember that discussion.
Well, you weren't at the meeting on the 24th of May. You were excused, but you probably
One,
read it.
one thing I'd just like everyone to consider is we have a lot of road needs in the town. This town, whether it's whatever government it is, the town people need repairs on the roads. And it is, in my opinion, it is important to put as much money as possible towards those roads being repaired. In this case, if the more that the MUD pays for the utility relocation, which is specifically a MUD expense, the more that leaves for us to repair roads. And I'd just like you to give that thought, because that the repair of the roads is something that we all need.
Let me just add one thing. Connie, totally agree with you. I am a little concerned, though, about we have an agreement that together we're going to fix this road right here in front of this building, and I'm hearing that the decision of the roundabout may prevent the city from participating in this. Now, I'd like somebody to address that before I vote one way or the other.
That was a comment that I had made to Robert that said, listen, if the utility has to be moved and you guys don't pay for it, I'm going to be hard pressed to come up with dollars to come up with to pay for the $40,000 or $50,000 it's going to take for our half to widen Municipal Drive. Thinking that the Denton County money would be used to relocate your asset.
Well, I just, Mike, the reason for I said that is I don't want anybody to forget that there's no movement of easements or anything that were causing this road to be fixed. It had to do with a safety issue, that it really needs to be widened a little bit, and the MUD had volunteered to help the city do that by putting up half of the expense, which is something we normally don't do. I just didn't want that to get lost in all of this.
And the majority of the traffic on Municipal Drive is actually the town, the police, the streets, all your vehicles that are parked over by the towers there.
But it's the fire trucks that have a lot to do with it too.
Well, the fire trucks come out
That was the
below.
reason we were going to fix the road.
Yeah. Well, the fire trucks come out the other side.
And don't shortchange me, Mike, it was $75,000 each.
Each one, is that how much it was?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember.
Well, I had a comment before we vote. One of them is that we did have the 75,000 that was approved that we talked about, not 93,000. Number one. Number two, there's some confusion about who is committed to do what. And number three, I have not seen the drawings. I have not been over where the lines are, where the lines have to go to. I've heard comments, but I personally would have to go over the engineering drawings myself in order for me to vote to spend this kind of money, because I have never seen that. And I hear whatever different people say about we moved it here, the roundabout moved, all these things have gone on. I need to sit down personally, sit down with the drawings. I need to look at it before I make that decision. Mr. Sanders.
One more question.
Aren't the drawings right here?
Yes.
Right here. One more question. It seems like that an estimate we got separately from the bids last year was significantly less. So as an educated guess, is that potentially feasible again, that it could be significantly less? And number two, can that be pulled out of the awarding of the bid?
Yes.
Yes to both?
We can certainly pull it out of the bid. The procurement laws allow for up to a 20% difference in the bid and still hold the contractor accountable to the bid. And this falls within that 20% threshold. I don't know how you guys come up with your bids. I mean, one of the things that Robert and I and the engineer had a discussion about was, do we want to continue to move forward and keep the relocation of those lines in the bid, thinking that you might be able to get a better price because you don't have the mobilization costs, et cetera, et cetera. So we did, but that piece of that contract can be removed in a New York minute, and we still can hold that contractor accountable to the existing bid.
Any further discussion? Yes, Bill.
Director?
Well, go ahead.
Whoever.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you. I'm getting a little confused here now because I was thinking the bid that you had was specifically just to remove and replace the valves in its current condition, and now, and what we've got on the contract here is different than that. So your apples and oranges is in your comparison here. So it would certainly be appreciated that, like I said, you've kind of moved to have got action for the 75,000, and you have a motion on the floor to increase that to 93. That would certainly be appreciative in the process. At the end of the day, it's all our citizens' monies we're paying for this, and if we can make it work, it would certainly be helpful. But I don't. And just from a contractor's point of view, if you put that whole section out to bid just on its own, my guess is that your numbers are going to come up substantially higher, because you're going to have to cover the overhead and profit for just that small project versus it being worked into a $2 million project.
And council, you'll also have to take into effect that if they did go out for a separate bid, you're delaying the roundabout project by 4 months, according to Tom Rutledge.
I mean, talking about the traffic earlier, I mean, you said, oh, if you do the valves in the middle, you would risk traffic backup. I mean, you've been down Trophy Club Drive at 4 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. How are you going to manage the traffic building a roundabout closing that intersection?
There's a phasing program that's routed around. Some of it's a detour, some of it is taking that, and the plans are here, and I'll be happy to walk you
That's
through
one of the main
them.
problems I have is, I mean, it seems like you come to us and ask us for money, but this is the first time I've ever seen these plans. I mean, everything was just, well, now we have something with the water, now we don't have something. It was all up in the air.
And when we went out for the bid on that for that originally, there was no removing any water lines because of a storm drain. Now they have to lower a water line because of a storm drain to make it work. That was not in the first bid, so that's a significant difference in price right there. Having to remove that water line, lower it to put the storm drain over it. And that was not in the last bid.
Can we vote on the motion? I mean, we can talk about this all night.
I'd like to ask one more question before you do that, please.
We may have split.
Well, Bill had a question and then.
I want to express personal opinion. I don't think it is the town's position to tell the MUD how to manage your valves and your water lines in that intersection. If you want to leave them and they fail within that intersection at some time in the future and you have to tear that intersection up, I'm sure that you will bear the full cost of that reconstruction. That being said, the other side of this equation is, as I look at the franchisee part of it, I'm not working with AT&T or Encore across the board saying, we need to support you in moving your gas lines or your electric lines in relation to that intersection.
I've always thought that we should move the lines. I do not like having those lines sitting underneath that roundabout. I just think that, Bill, like you're saying, I just think if there's a problem on maintenance, it's just going to be a mess and a half. Now, that having been said, Nick's got a motion on the floor that is more money than we had approved last year by not a whole lot, 75 to 93. But my question is this, Robert, how much money do we have in the budget to pay for our half of Municipal Drive?
75.
All right. I'm willing to vote for this as long as you guys don't back off of your commitment to fix that road. That road's a mess. If you back off your commitment, then I'm not going to vote for this.
Okay,
can't
with
tie
your,
one to the
with your
apples and
93
oranges.
with your 93,000, how much work do you want done? Do you want us to assist you in paying for that?
Bill, we had an
Because as
agreement.
I look at the,
We have an
we talk
agreement.
about
We had an agreement to replace the road, and we'd pay for half of it each, and it came out to be $75,000 apiece. Now, I've heard that if we don't pony into this roundabout, that you may back out of this road. So the two are tied together, as far as I'm concerned, because y'all have tied them together, not me. Mike did.
Well, because
Mr. President, I moved the previous question.
Okay.
Need a second?
Question's been moved, seconded. All those.
No. Did somebody second?
I thought
Bill seconded.
Bill.
No, to call the question is what he's doing.
No, he's talking about the question.
Yeah, I called the question, which is called move the previous question on the matter before us.
Okay, that doesn't need to be seconded.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it needs a second.
It does. Does anybody second it?
It needs to be the MUD board that seconds.
Okay.
In other words, are you ready to vote?
I'm ready to vote.
Then second it.
No second.
Yeah, got a second.
Okay.
Director Carr seconded.
The motion's been made and seconded to call a motion. Therefore, all those in favor, raise your hand.
Of calling the motion.
Calling the question.
Of calling the question. You're not voting on, all right?
Okay, that's 4-1. Now, it's approved to call the motion, so now we are ready to vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion for $93,000, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The motion does not carry.
I'm leaving.
Now, before you go on, now that that is off the table, can we now discuss an agreement on this road? I'm not opposed to the going up to 93. I'm opposed to the town backing out of the street.
Well, but if you're thinking of the
Item's
road,
not
maybe
agenda.
you need to go to
Yeah,
187.
I agree. It's not on the agenda. Can I
You
make
want
a
to
mo-
discuss that, we need to do agenda it and have another meeting. Your
Make a
apples and
motion.
oranges, had no point of order to come up here, Mr. Thomas. That's just nuts, and I'm leaving. This is ridiculous. We still have a
did-
quorum.
The next item,
Excuse me.
please. That's
It was the
forward.
town manager that tied these two things together.
No, sir. No, sir.
Did it in this
He wanted
meeting.
to point out
Order.
that
In this
you
meeting.
had, if we didn't have the funds to be able to do both at that particular time. That's, it was never
Please.
tied together.
Please,
They're just
everybody,
few and
let's
apart.
get this back to a normal tone of voice and a normal
I can't
discussion.
believe it's so
We can-
childless
we
in
can
this
fight some other
organization.
time,
You can't
Tony.
do crap.
We're gonna have to
All right,
move on.
item 5 is the discussion of electronic message boards at all town entryways.
Madam Mayor and Directors, the council has asked that we investigate the a new electronic board on the entryway down Marshall Creek Road coming into Trophy Club from Roanoke by the high school. We have since taken a look at the other 3 electronic message boards that we have out in the other entryways to our community. They are antiques. They are beyond repair. It's very, very difficult to find replacement parts, and I think you can all attest to the fact that they're down more often than they're working. So we were directed to come and approach the MUD to see if there was any effort on your part to participate in a electronic message board replacement program to include a new one on Marshall Creek Road at the intersection of Marshall Creek and Bobcat, and replace the other 3 at the other 3 entryways. Generally, the cost for just the electronic message board is about $12,500, and then there's the dress up of the rock frame and that kind of thing. So it's an item for discussion. We're certainly not going to do anything this budget year. It's not budgeted, but as we approach the new budget cycle, as you're well aware, those message boards are used for both organizations equally, and if you're interested in participating in a program like that, I think the town would be receptive as well.
Madam Chair. For my opinion, I'm willing to try to participate as the MUD. There are 2 things that I would comment upon. My memory, which may not be perfect here, was that we did those message boards, and Mr. Beck gave us $15,000 to do that. So, I would just suggest you investigate maybe how much he gave and maybe approach him to see if he's willing to at least participate in the new one that would be down at Marshall Creek Road and Bobcat Boulevard area. Secondly, my experience with the message boards was more of an issue that the signal wouldn't get to them from here, as opposed to the boards themselves were bad. But maybe that's changed. They're not terribly old, in my opinion. But I'm surely willing to help participate in that, and I would say get some estimates so that we can adequately consider it for next year's budget, as far as I'm concerned.
Maybe, Mike, you can answer this question. I know that school advertises, like I see Darren Davis, name on there sometimes. Have we looked into the possibility of, putting advertising on there to kind of offset the cost?
We have not in the past, no, and I don't.
Is it legal? I mean, is it something the town could do?
We could, but if you allow advertisers, you cannot discern by content. So anyone who wanted to place any message on there advertising-wise, you would not be able to stop that. If you open it up, it's open to anyone who wants to advertise on it.
And how does the school get around that?
I don't know that they do.
Well,
My thought on that is that I've noticed recently that we have more and more announcements on the board, and it's difficult to see as you go by and I think that it's more of a service to the residents, and I think if you put advertising on it, then we're going to lose the ability to see the messages just because of the number of messages in time. Mr. Sanders?
I forgot to say one other thing. Back during the rezoning for the PID and the creation of the PID and Murdad, Centurion American buying the land, there was discussion about his participation financially in signage, and in fact, he paid for engineering to be done for an additional sign. That you should have the drawing somewhere. If you don't, Alvin, I can't remember, Alvin's next. Jackson surely can get those. It was more than just entry signage with marquees. It included directional signing. We have some directional signing in town that's very old, brick side pieces, kind of some wood middle, pointed to areas of town. And so the temporary signs that were erected to take people to new development were meant to be temporary so that it got people to new development to buy homes, but we wouldn't build more permanent signage until most of the development was done. So I think go back and look to what that was engineered to do, because he paid for the engineering to look at that, and it matched our marquee signs in the sense of the Austin stone, kind of the design. So it gave a...
We're in discussion with Alvin right now to update all of that.
So whether or not they're still willing to participate financially, I don't know, but it's surely worth pursuing, and surely worth pursuing back so that we have some idea of what to do.
I can report to you that they are certainly willing to participate in the directional signs. They would like to update and refresh those types of signs. I don't know that they're willing to participate in these electronic message board signs. And while I have the mic, if you don't mind, Mayor, all of our IT guy was sitting back here in the video room, sent me an email and said, "Hey, those marquees have 2 electronic message boards on each side. Each sign has 2, so that 12.5 that I quoted you is actually $25,000 for each entryway." He wanted to make sure that you guys all knew that. I obviously didn't. So we're talking about for 4 entryways, $100,000 program, and it doesn't have to be all done at one time. It can be a phased program that, and the purpose of this discussion item on this agenda was to have that discussion, put you folks on notice, the MUD folks and the council on notice, that if that's important to you, we're entering the budget cycle as we speak, and it would have to be a collaborative effort to make that happen.
I was just going to say, Mike, I'd encourage you to, as you do your homework, to put a really good sign in. I think the MUD ought to participate, because I do think we get advantage out of that.
I agree that, on participation, but I'd also like to investigate the offset by advertising. I mean, people put a message on there, and as they're driving it up, they can see, but it works for the schools. They advertise, and they have stuff going on there all the time.
Where our current electronic boards are, you're not even getting all of you don't really have the time to look at all of the messages that we're trying to broadcast. Never
Hardly
mind
any of the message.
Well, and then and Patricia might look into, I mean, you possibly could be venturing into a DFW situation where they had the boards up and the liability suits they had. People looking at them and run into someone in front of them. So, I mean, that's something that we probably need to look at.
I'd just like to express my personal willingness to work with the town from a MUD standpoint on these electronic message boards, without being specific right now as to how much money. But I personally would like to see us work with the town. I would like to see us to participate in the program once we see what it should be and what it might be. And I'd like to express my personal feeling that we would like to work with the town on this.
Thank you. Okay. Good? Okay. And move on to number 6, a discussion of MUD support of potential splash pad at Harmony Park.
I have a speaker.
Okay. Mr. Slide, do you want to speak or should...
if you don't mind, let me give you a quick overview. We had another discussion at the council meeting last night about future park improvements. There's some approximately $457,000 left in the park bond for future park improvements, and one of those improvements that the council will be considering is a small splash pad, much smaller than the one that was presented to the MUD board last year. And last year, the Mud Board was very gracious about offering the water and the wastewater utilities in support of a splash pad of significant size last year. And unfortunately, it didn't get the pad didn't get built. But we are still trying to identify the right size and what kind of feature fits Harmony Park and meets the need. And as we continue to move toward that, I thought it would be very appropriate, since we are meeting jointly, to ask the Mud Board if you're still supportive of the offer that you had that you offered last year toward the splash pad. It would be significantly smaller in terms of water consumption and wastewater collection. We're talking in the, I think if I'm not mistaken, last year it was almost 1,800 square feet of a splash pad. We're gonna bring to the council a 600 square foot splash pad that would accommodate up to 30 kids at any given time. We feel like that's a more appropriate size.
Mike, do you have a feel for the amount of water it'll use versus the one you had before?
Director Thomas, I have no detail at this point. I don't. I mean,
but suffice to say,
it's going to be a third of whatever it was before.
It'll be less, all right.
And the purpose tonight is to give this council some level of comfort or not, whether Mud Board is still supportive of providing the utilities, the water and the wastewater to operate that facility.
Mike, we last year we voted to support the splash pad as described. It was larger, so it probably would be less since you're contemplating one that's a little bit smaller. So as far as I'm concerned, we committed last year. The council decided not to build it, but that does not take away our commitment if you did build it in the future. So unless somebody has some comments, we did approve that. So
I agree.
Okay. Did you?
I'd still like to comment briefly, if I could, Mr. Moss.
You might change my
President
agreement.
Moss, no, don't worry, I'm not going to change anything. I promise that. I don't get a chance to come before the Mud Board very often, so first of all, in advance of your vote, I'll thank you already. But I did want to just say...
I want to say your name for the record.
I'm sorry, Larry Linsner, 303 Ridgeview Lane, Chairman of the Parks Board. Wanted to just comment, this was an original bond item that was committed to the citizens of the east side of town. And as we went through as a facility subcommittee and bond committee, I think we did a really good job of due diligence of making sure that we have $457,000 left. Last time, I unfortunately, and I apologize, I was out of town on business. I was not able to be here in support of this initiative. And I'll be also apologizing the fact that we didn't quite have our ducks in the row between the Parks Board and the council at that time as to the size type of facility that we're looking at. I think we're still working through those issues, but I'm very confident that we're going to get through those issues, and I would just like to thank you all very much for your support. Thank you.
Question for you, if we should.
Sure.
Do you anticipate any additional maintenance required on this one, in that the one we have has no trees around it? This one's almost canopied with trees. So you got anything different to kind of keep the leaves out of that thing?
Where we're going to be, Director Thomas, is where that volleyball court is. Mm-hmm. There's, of course, trees to the side. They're not that close. I think the setback's probably at least 20, 30 feet. There will be some maintenance, but I think that really depends on the design. And we're still kind of in that design phase. We're looking at things that shoot up from the ground. We've got things that may come down and spray, but I don't see it being a major issue. I mean, the other communities, Roanoke, for example, Cannon Park and the Parks of Roanoke both have amenities that are probably going to be a little bit bigger than what we're looking at now, but were smaller than what we had originally planned. And they don't seem to have any problems. I mean, you're looking at refurbishing it every 4 years, some paint, some touch up and stuff like that. But I don't think maintenance wise will be an issue. I think the determination right now is recirculatory or not, and the pros and cons of that. And then, or what I would deem, and you offered to support the poor man's recirculatory system, which the water just goes right back to the mud and comes on back after you guys get a chance to take care of it.
But the proximity would be the volleyball courts?
Yes, it'll be right where that volleyball court is, which will kind of take care of an eyesore and a sticker patch and open up that park during the heat of the summer to the children, and probably open up that pavilion and everything. I mean, 105 degrees, that thing was shut down pretty much from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., and this will open that up. Thank you.
Mr. Rose?
I'd like to clarify one point on the water for the facility. The type of facility that's put on the ground, if you use a facility that, well, let me just say that the water use can vary depending upon the design of the facility. And so as the Parks Board looks at resizing, are you willing to stay with the same level of commitment that you had before as far as gallon usage?
I would be.
Mr. Sanders?
Madam Mayor, I just would point out that I don't feel like that commitment continues, seeing as though it wasn't taken advantage of at that time, number one. Although it's not that I don't support it, I just don't think we can commit that that is the case. Number two, just knowing how this board is, it probably is going to want more details before it commits. So that I still think you can't say that it's a commitment. And number three, you have an election coming that could change 2 members of the board. So it could go a different way. So you're going to have to draw your own conclusion based on all those facts. I do support the concept. I think what you've heard tonight is other people support the concept. But there's no fixed commitment. I want to make that clear. It's not budgeted. That kind of thing.
And I will commit to the MUD board that once the council makes some decision, Mr. Lenzner and the park department and I are already working on a proposal to put in front of the council the end of March. If the council decides one way or the other, we will also make that same presentation to you with all the pertinent information.
Okay. All right. Moving on, item 7, review the interlocal agreement for employee and contractual services for fiscal year 2011-12. Discussion of same.
I asked for this to be on the agenda this time, not to look at it or review the agreement at all, but to simply mention that there is a new budget year coming up before long, and there's a couple of items that are in the agreement that the MUD would like to look at again, and that would be done with the town manager and with the MUD manager. And I do not feel that any further discussion is required on it tonight, but simply to mention that there's a couple of things that we want to look at, maybe that are different than this past year. That's all.
You want to tell me what those are? Or?
IT was one, but as you know, this is a negotiation, and it's simply pointing out that we would like to talk about a couple of items. That's one of them, the big one.
Is there any possibility of an expansion of the agreement?
Always.
Okay.
It just has to be justified. Sure.
Madam Mayor and MUD Board, this particular contract involves a lot of variables, not the least of which is HR and we have been presented an opportunity. The MUD, Robert and I have talked about this on several occasions. We've been offered an opportunity to participate in a regional compensation and classification study that involves an analysis of everybody in the MUD and everybody in the town's positions and their compensation and their classification and their job descriptions related to other communities our size all across the region. The town did a similar study last year, if you'll remember, during our budget cycle, and the cost for that particular compensation study, we would be included with North Lake and Lake Dallas, Justin, and Crum are all participating in this thing to take advantage of economies of scale. And quite frankly, we're looking for some head nodding to determine whether or not we should move forward. Robert and I are certainly supportive of doing something like that and taking advantage of the opportunity. Robert, I think, indicated to me that the last time that the MUD had done anything to this extent for their employees was back in 2002, I think.
Yeah, we might even started that with Ray and Associates. I think you remember, Connie, back in '99. Yeah, so it's been a while.
And our HR director, who does provide HR services for both the MUD and the town, related to this particular agreement that's on the agenda tonight, would be the lead person in providing the necessary information. A representative sampling of all of our employees would be interviewed to determine that what their actual job descriptions or job activities are meet other communities' job descriptions, and they compare those kinds of things. So if you're interested in moving forward with that, Robert and I are prepared to share the cost on that particular piece. And for the town, it's simply a validation of what we think we already know. And what we did last year was an internal study, and I would certainly plan to use discretionary dollars to fund our part of that particular study. I think would be a smart move on our behalf to have that validation.
Do you have any idea as to the cost?
Yes, the total cost for town and MUD is $10,000. I thought I mentioned that. I'm sorry.
Any comments?
I think it'd be a very good idea to get that going.
Kevin?
I don't have any problem.
No problem. No problem. I agree. It looks like, just for a matter of discussion, that the MUD board's in general agreement, Mike, and working out something.
Just clarification, 10,000 is for the both entities, so 5 apiece, or 10?
Yes.
Okay. This one.
Okay.
Larry?
Since the CMO contract is on the agenda, is this an appropriate time to discuss the city contracting to do all the MUD personnel management and hire a public works director as opposed to the way we're doing it now?
No.
Well, the CMO contract is a contract for service.
But not all the employees of the MUD work for the town.
That's correct.
The suggestion was that, as we had discussed, for the town to contract for services for all the employees of the MUD.
If you look at CMO contract, the way we look at that, what's on the CMO contract right now, and that is not on there. It's what we contracted for. It's spelled out in the exhibit if you want to look at it, and that was not one of them at this time. You can put that on a future agenda, I believe. You might want to check with Mr. Moss or Kevin or Nick, but I don't think that's up for discussion right now.
Tricia?
Well, that is certainly one way to deal with employee and contractual services. So, I mean, I think it probably falls within, if you want to discuss it. If you're not, don't want to discuss it, then don't. But as far as an agenda posting, this is the agreement for employee and contractual services, whether that's how we have it structured now, or if you want to talk about any possibility of changing that as we move forward into the new budget, it might be a good time to at least have some discussion.
I think both sides have voiced opinions of, there's items on both sides of the table that we need to talk about. So at this point, it appears that, the town, which I would think would be Mike or Stephen or someone, to be involved in a CMO committee similar to what we had before, and put your concerns, what you want to add, what you want to take out on the table, and then come back to the council and the board at that time. So I guess what I'm asking is if we could designate some people, or if you want to wait till after election, that's fine. But as Mike mentioned, we're coming up on the budget season, and there really isn't. That's in May. We need to move on with it.
I have no problem putting together a CMO committee to open the dialogue and have that discussion.
Okay.
Go ahead. If they were first, I don't know.
Well, if I may, Mayor, I was just going to, since it appears that we're agended for it, I mean, if, again, you know, we're not looking for any, you know, binding discussion here, but with Robert's quickly approaching retirement and the need to fulfill that position, there could be the strategy of expanding that role to a public works director that would report to the MUD and to the council to be that liaison in that process, that possibly a shared cost position, or it falls into the CMO contract in the piece of the costing of there. And to me, we could possibly take advantage of some economies of scale. You hire one person that would kind of, as our public works department is kind of growing, and like I said, it just, to me, it would be great timing to at least explore that possibility. And whether we need to schedule another joint meeting or form a subcommittee to discuss that process, I mean, I'd certainly be willing to participate in that, just to see if there's if something like that can work. Just to me, it would make common sense help as our town continues to grow, our maintenance and our contract, if I'll call it public works, but roads and streets need continual improvement, and as that role grows, and like I said, with the opportunity that were presented here, maybe look at a little different position that would be an expanded role if the MUD would be open to discussing that.
Glenn, this is just kind of coming out of left field tonight. I'd like to see exactly what that means and see an organizational chart of it and what have you before I'd even say, yeah, let's move and discuss it or whatever. I'm not even sure what you're asking right now.
Well, it's my understanding that y'all are in the search to do a replacement for the MUD director.
That is correct.
And what I guess I'm suggesting is that to consider that, and we certainly, I again would be willing to assist if needed. I think we can come up with an org chart fairly simply. What that would roll is that the MUD director position would, instead of being a MUD director, would be a director of public works. And I guess the easiest way to kind of put that person in position would be something like Chief Thomas, that reports both to the MUD and to the town, and they would have that dual role. But as we grow as a town, then maybe this is an opportunity to bring in maybe a larger somebody that has a dual skill set in that pieces. And I'm not asking for a run tonight. I'm just saying, if the MUD would be open to explore that I think the town would be willing to help and sit down with Robert, and like I said, if we need to form a subcommittee to go chase that out to kind of give you the pieces. I'm not asking to take action tonight. It's just y'all are just where y'all are at in the moment. That's all.
Glenn, I don't want to sound negative on this, but I think that box may have Pandora written on it, and I think we should do some, there'd be a lot of discussion about it, and organizational chart. As I said, that opens up something that I'm not sure. Having the town and the MUD be jointly in charge of something, I just kind of makes me nervous.
Yeah.
I like the idea of trying to explore all aspects. We're losing Robert. He's been the one that's handled most of the dealings with the CMO contract for several years. So we're going to be bringing somebody new in. So to me, it makes sense that we involve some directors and managers to work on that for this next budget year. We have to anyway, and so both sides have expressed they want to do that. So we're down to 5 minutes before we need to start. So
Just a quick note, Jim Thomas and myself were actually on that committee, and we're here for another 2 years at least.
There you go. And I know that.
Well, I guess the question is though, and I know we're at time here, is that instead of looking at and replacing the MUD director, is look if you're in a position to, and again, I don't know the org chart after Robert, if there is a managed by a committee and that position doesn't have to be filled right away to be able to discuss that role, so you're not, because obviously you shouldn't need a MUD director and a public works director. Now you're doubling up on.
Just for the record, it's a MUD manager. We're MUD directors.
MUD manager.
I just want to make it clear on that.
But you're out to hire a MUD manager. And and maybe I apologize for the confusion, was that the MUD manager would, the role of the public works director or manager would have that dual role, and it doesn't make sense to me off hip is that the town would have a public works manager and a MUD managers who just taken two roles and put it in one position.
I agree, but there's a lot of things in this town that don't make sense, and we continue on.
Well,
So-
we had in the past discussed that at the point that Robert retired, that we would rethink how we wanted the management structure to be. We did talk about that, and that's, I think, the basic thing is that we should have that discussion. The only other item we have, and I know we're running short of time, is to, which is appropriate at this point, discussion regarding future joint sessions and agenda items.
I think the one item we just talked about surely should be there to discuss.
Definitely. Do you want to go ahead and schedule, I'm sure we're not going to work the schedule right now, but do you want to go ahead and plan for another session? If we don't say something right now, that yes, we want to plan it in some period of time, it doesn't always happen. So I'd like to kind of nail that down a little bit. The question is, do we have it before the election or after? Mike?
Madam Mayor, I think these are productive meetings that would help us in our budgeting cycles. And what I would recommend is we get into the budget cycles and the staffs work together and come back and have a preliminary budget update for both boards. So I don't know that we need to meet right away, but the late April, early May timeframe, maybe right after the election.
Yeah, and could I just add to that? With that, I mean, it's going into the budget. If the MUD board in the town have any projects that the other person is going to be involved in, that needs to be brought to the front, so we can budget.
That would be the purpose of the meeting.
Right.
Definitely. Okay. Good. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second? Second. Okay, the meeting is adjourned at 6:58.
The MUD board is in recess.
Okay.
Take a 10-minute break.